All right, let's take a look at the good and the bad for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Let's start with the good, okay? Let's start with the good. Sometimes you lead with the bad. I'm leading with the good. I'm leading with the good in this case, including this specific highlight because this is pretty cool. So correlation, I don't believe necessarily was the first person to share this reaction, but the most widely seen. This is the sick move that Caitlin made in the game. And watch the reaction of one of the people in the front row closely, the face. There's the behind the back move, which is followed by the, there it is. You saw it, right? Okay. So people wound up identifying who that person was, and that is Lecrae, a famous Christian rapper, recording artist, activist. I believe had the first Christian rap album to reach number 1 on the Billboard gospel charts. And Lecrae acknowledged it. He said, "Look, this was my face when CC made that move and everything." And that is kind of the deal with Caitlin Clark. And I've always said it's about basketball. That's what brings people in. That's the excitement. I saw a local news interview with a Fever fan who said she came for Clark, but she stayed for the WNBA, which is really cool to see. And that is the good. What else is the good? The Fever won the freaking game. Caitlin, 15 points, 5 assists, 21st game she's done that. That's a WNBA record. Fever have won more games than they won last year. So for the most part, it was all good. For the most part, it was all good. But I saw a lot of complaining in the game. I saw a lot of complaining specifically after the game about Clark not shooting the ball. And let me look at this one play in particular here, which is fair to, point out because this was a shot that Caitlin Clark passed up. There is no question she should have taken the shot on this play. She gets the ball right at the free throw line. You got to just pull into that shot. Instead, she kicks it out. I don't know exactly what was going on there. We've seen her pass up those mid-range shots too often this year. I've also seen her be much more aggressive with them since the Olympic break was over. But that's a shot she has to take. And that's like kind of the final frontier for her is being as comfortable with those shots as she is with the deep threes, as she is taking it to the rack, as she is finding her teammates. Now, the Fever continue to blow these late leads, if you will. Now, the good thing about that is they have a late lead. It's a good thing to have a lead. And I think that might play in to why Clark is hesitant in those spots as they're milking the clock and they're playing and it's not a tight game. And also the game should have been over. The game should have been over had some plays been converted. I mean, this is the reason Temi Fagbenle posted this on her story. A win's a win, but it felt like, I was doing everything I could to make sure that didn't happen. Mood after smoking both layups after her 2 great passes. And Clark did make 2 great passes to Temi Fagbenle. The layups were just blown, just straight smoked, as Temi says on that play. I mean, that's, there's no other way to put it. She totally missed the layups on great passes, great feeds from Clark. And, if she had made those and some of the other assists were converted, then we're not even talking about all this because the Fever win the game going away. They win the game going away. Like this is an example of the smoked layup. There was 2 of them that were really bad, but this was one of them. Look, cut, good motion, good move, but just blew it. No more to it than that, right? One other thing I saw circulating was almost bad faith engagement farming, I think, for the flagrant foul that wasn't called on Caitlin Clark and comparisons to Angel Reese earlier in the year. Clark with the chase down here and a basketball play. She looks like she might have hit her across the head. I mean, if they want to call a flagrant, they can call a flagrant, fine. I mean, flagrant doesn't have to be intent. But to compare it to Reese earlier in the year, I never thought the Angel Reese flagrant foul on Caitlin Clark was anything. You can go back and watch my videos from the time. I never thought it was anything. I always thought that was Carnival Barker's trying to capitalize on the discussion and the talk at that point in the season. Especially fresh off the Kennedy Carter play. Like the Kennedy Carter play was a whole different deal because it wasn't within the confines of the basketball game. It was just she went over and hit her, checked her. That was a whole different animal. And even the Kennedy Carter play, I didn't lose my mind about. I mean, I've seen, random stuff like that watching basketball my whole life. But the Angel Reese play was clearly a basketball play. Flagrant, maybe, sure. But it was a basketball play. It didn't need to be discussed and dissected. And she didn't, nothing needed to go her way. But I said at the time, that was the Carnival Barkers trying to capitalize. You saw it right away. So to try and go back and compare this to the Reese play is like, it's just not necessary. There's just no, there's no real reason to do so other than to try and stir stuff up, I guess is what I'm saying. To try and stir stuff up. And in this case, everybody seems to be trying to stir up and get themselves all riled up when there is only good news for the Indiana Fever. I mean, for the most part. And also, Caitlin Clark had an ankle injury in the game. That seems to be forgotten and all. She got hurt. She came back out there and played after getting hurt. So, I think it's overall a good thing. It's overall a good thing. She does need to work on those mid-range shots. I would like to see her shoot more in the fourth quarter. Also, Kelsey Mitchell was cooking in this one too, right? Like sometimes it's funny because I did the whole LeBron and Caitlin comparison, and there's so many little ways that that's showing up aside from just like what they do as a force, a basketball force. But what they're taught, how they're talked about online, how they're hated on, all that stuff. And in this case, LeBron got that criticism throughout his career. Shoot more, shoot more, shoot more. And it wasn't until he refined his shooting, both in the mid-range and from deep. He's become a really good deep shooter later in his career. But it was the Spurs and the Mavericks giving him that jumper. And it wasn't until he started hitting that jumper that he fully unlocked his game. But we're talking about a rookie here who's already one of the best players, to me, the best guard clearly in the WNBA. I would say the best offensive player. And that's the standard that she's reached. So I think overall, it should be spun not as a bad thing, but as a good thing.